Hi everyone.
Hi there.
Hello.
Hello, hi. So we're doing our video cast today on the road travelled, and I'm going to introduce that a little bit more in a moment. But just to introduce all of us first, so my name is Jude Mason, and I work as a tutor for Chrysalis. I currently teach Year 2 and Year 3. And joining me today, I have Mandy, Linda, Lynne, and Clive. And I'm going to let you guys introduce yourselves. So if we can start with Mandy, do you want to say a few words about yourself, Mandy, and what you do at Chrysalis at the moment, or what you do?
Yeah, I'm almost qualified. I say that very positively. I'm studying in Cardiff, and because of the lockdown, everything came to a grinding halt. And so I'm still practicing online. I am a qualified counsellor. I studied Adlerian counselling in the Adlerian Society of Wales. And I'm, in another life, I'm a professional musician. I play the piano and sing.
Wow, so the road travelled for you, which is our topic today, and I'll talk about that a bit more in a minute, is a kind of long and winding road. But we'll talk about that a little bit more, Mandy, because I think you've got lots of interesting things to say today. Linda, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Linda Witchell, and I originally trained with Chrysalis a long time ago, let's say 2005-06. I am now a Chrysalis tutor, and I teach Year 1, Year 2 and Year 3, and I have also been teaching weekends level 5. So I'm really into hypnotherapy particularly, but also counselling.
Yeah, so it sounds like you're really busy, Linda.
Oh yes, I'm one of those busy people. Yeah, and I've of course got my full-time practice as well.
Yeah, I teach level 5 as well, and I really enjoy that course. Yeah, it's lovely. Okay, Lynne, nice to see you today.
Hi, thank you. So I'm Lynne, and I work in the office in Somerset. I am the South Student Support Liaison, and I've been there since last September. It's the first time I've worked for any kind of training organisation, but it's good. It's really interesting. It's busy, and it's fairly varied. Yeah, but we're kept busy, but that's a good thing.
Oh, absolutely, because things are changing all the time at the moment, aren't they? So I'm sure you're getting loads and loads of inquiries from students, from tutors.
Yeah, and it does change really quickly and really regularly at the moment, because we're trying to do so much to keep up with, all the changes that are going on at the moment, and trying to adapt everything so that it works best for everyone. So it is, it's quite busy and fairly challenging just at the moment, but it's good.
It's keeping us all on our toes, isn't it?
That's the thing. It is.
And lastly, Clive, do you want to introduce yourself, Clive?
Yes, so my name's Clive Gascoigne. Hello, everyone. I've been interviewing for Chrysalis since 2005, and that was after I trained with Chrysalis previously in Cardiff. So I've been in Cardiff now for about 23 years. I'm from Oxfordshire originally.
Great. Well, welcome everybody. It's lovely to see you. So, as I mentioned, our topic for today is the road travelled. So we're going to be thinking about and chatting about what brought us to our current jobs. For most of us, what brought us to therapy, and for Lynne, what brought you specifically to working in the Chrysalis office. So I'm going to start with my story first. Like Linda and Clive, I actually trained with Chrysalis, but prior to that, I had a whole other life. So prior to retraining as a counsellor, I was a primary school teacher. And I was a primary school teacher for many years, and there was lots and lots of things about my job that I absolutely loved. But towards the end, there was things that I didn't love so much, I guess. It was quite a stressful occupation, as lots of if we've got any other teachers out there will probably agree, school teachers. And also I found myself, when I was working with the kids at school, I found myself being more concerned with the sort of pastoral side of things, and I started running lots of pastoral groups in school. And I realised that was the part of teaching that I really loved, actually, looking after the kids' well-being and sort of emotional health. So like lots of others, I thought, well, Chrysalis really suits because I can carry on working, but I can study at the weekends. So basically that's what I did, and I started in year 1. So I started studying to be a hypnotherapist, although I wasn't sure about that at the time. But actually now I have a private practice and I do just as much hypnotherapy as counselling. And I have to say I absolutely love the hypnotherapy part of my job. And then a few years ago, I kind of found myself, you know, missing the teaching as well, because although I decided to change, there was lots about teaching that I absolutely loved. So I started teaching for the Chrysalis, and now it just feels like a wonderful mix for me of seeing private clients, seeing young people as well, because I was used to working with young people. So seeing young people and adults in my private practice, but also teaching for Chrysalis, and it seems like a fantastic mix for me. So yeah, that's my story really. I'm really happy doing what I'm doing. It was a good fit for me, and it was a fantastic choice. And I had some excellent tutors with Chrysalis, so I had a really, really good experience, a really positive experience. So I'm going to go to Mandy first, because Mandy, you're doing the hypnotherapy course, aren't you? So you're our token student here today. So do you want to? But from what you said, you've got a lot to say about the things you've done before and the things you're still doing. So do you want to tell us a little bit about how you came to be a Chrysalis student and how that fits in with your life?
Yeah, I mean, in a similar vein to you, where you said you were missing teaching and the well-being, in a bit of a simile. I am, but I was full-time an entertainer, and I was working on ships and hotels abroad for 20 years. And I love people with a passion. And I used to, people would come up to me at the end of the night when they'd had a couple of pints too many and start pouring their life story out to me. And suddenly, because I just used to play the piano and listen to them, suddenly they'd say, do you know what, I've never told anybody that. And I just thought, well, they just say that to everybody. You know, the barman, it's a typical story that happens. And I started to ask people, do they say that to you too? And I went, yeah, they do, God, honestly. And I thought, phew, that's awful. That guy was in pain when he shared that story with me. And so I didn't brush it off. But I mean, I was in my 20s and early 30s, and I was having a blast on the road, on ships and entertaining. And then I had a relationship which broke up and broke my heart, and I went underground for a long time. And my mum bought me a book called Light Up Your Life by Diana Cooper, an angel lady. And she's a metaphysical teacher, and I started reading it and reading other stuff related to it. And I thought, well, this is amazing. And I just thought, if I could pass this stuff on to other people to help them, that would be amazing. And so I went to study counselling, and it was Adlerian counselling, which I adore and love with a passion, but there was something missing for me. And I thought it was, the metaphysical side. And what I didn't realise was that there was nothing missing except me. I just didn't give my whole self to it. That was all. And so I had 4 years off. I went back to finish my Adlerian counselling, and there was still this kind of link missing, if you like. And suddenly I just was drawn to hypnotherapy, and I thought, that's it. I was live sharing with somebody, and she said, I'm studying hypnotherapy, and it's the most exciting thing I've ever done in my life.
Oh, I'm really, really pleased to hear that. Really pleased to hear
she
that.
studied in Birmingham. And it was like a seed that was planted. And I heard what she said, but it didn't mean anything to me. And about 4 or 5 months later, I suddenly thought, that's it. That's it. I've got goosebumps as I share that story with you.
Yeah.
But that's it. I need to go and study hypnotherapy. And so, yeah, I went and interviewed.
That's a really interesting story, and it's really great to hear that enthusiasm for hypnotherapy. I totally agree with you. I mean, you kind of knew you were missing something, but sometimes we do have students who are not so sure about hypnotherapy. The vast majority actually really engage with it, and so it's great to hear that sort of level of enthusiasm. And I guess I imagine lots of us here feel exactly the same. Actually, I know that you teach all the years, don't you, Linda? So you must love hypnotherapy to be teaching it.
Yeah, I do, but I sort of, like a lot of people, when I first started with hypnotherapy, I wasn't quite sure if I wanted to do it. I mean, just like everybody else, you know, you think about stage hypnotism, and, you know, I wanted to help people. I didn't want people to do things for entertainment. So I wasn't sure when I first started year one, but oh my goodness, I just love hypnotherapy now. And yeah, I've got my own private practice, and I do hypnotherapy and counselling, but it's really hypnotherapy that I'm very passionate about.
Yeah.
And it sort of helped me to realize some of the things that have gone on in my life. I mean, I just like Mandy, had a bit of a downtime at one time, and I developed a skin condition, and the doctors couldn't sort it out. And I ended up going to this very elderly dermatologist, and he just looked at me in that sort of trancey way, and he said things to me that just made me know now that he was using hypnotic techniques. He didn't even examine my body or anything, but after that one visit, I didn't have the skin problem again. And so, you know, it's sort of made me reflect on my life and realize that, you know, sometimes, you know, hypnotherapy has helped me, but with techniques, but I haven't even actually realized it.
Yeah, it's powerful, isn't it?
Yes, it's the way we communicate with each other.
Absolutely, absolutely. So what brought you, Linda, to therapy in general?
You mean to do the Chrysalis course?
Yeah, to do the Chrysalis course. Were you were you doing something else before, or have you been a therapist for a long, long time?
Yeah, no, I was a registered nurse, and I was working full-time as a registered nurse and sort of going up the ladder in nursing, which I loved. But there was always those people that used to say to me, can I just tell you something, Linda? Yeah, whether it's some other members of staff or maybe a relative or something. And people always used to come to me, and I used to think, I want to be a counsellor, and learn, because in nursing, of course, you do learn some counselling skills, but it's so different to actually, you know, going along and becoming a counsellor. So as I was working full time, it was very difficult for me to take time off. So Chrysalis was just the right course for me, because it meant I could work weekends on my Chrysalis work. And what I loved also about Chrysalis, it's very hands-on, it's experiential learning as much as anything else. So we did lots of practice, etc., during those days.
Yeah, and I think that's brilliant, because counselling and hypnotherapy, they're doing skills, aren't they? You can, you know, obviously you have to have the theory. That's really important, but ultimately it's something that you have to do, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think also having I made such a lot of good friends in my group. I mean, they don't have such big groups these days, but when I originally did Chrysalis course, there was 36 in our group. And so we had lots of people that we got to know. And, you know, even today, you know, after all the time, I even have still got friends that I originally met on year one in my Chrysalis course.
Oh, me too. One of my best friends is someone I met at Chrysalis, and I think part of that is because when you're doing your practice, when you're talking about different issues, people tend to really open up, don't they? So the friend, one of my closest friends, I met during my Chrysalis course, I think she knows everything about me, and I know everything about her, because it's kind of like no holds barred, if you like. And I think it is because we did the hypnotherapy and counselling course together.
Yeah, I found the same.
And it's interesting that you both said as well, and I found this, and I'm wondering if Clive and Lynne find the same, that often people think about counselling when they start using some skills kind of unofficially, if you like, or you notice that people are coming to you and you suddenly think, actually, this is quite a good fit for me. The fact that people are looking at me as a confidant and they want to share, their deepest thoughts with me. Obviously, there's something about me that makes counselling a potentially a good fit. Have you found that as well, Clive? I know.
Yeah, well, I think for me, I suppose there were two key things. I went for some psychological help in my mid-20s, and the first lot wasn't what I felt very good. I then went again probably a couple of years later, and just by chance found somebody that I found at the time was remarkable, and really felt empowered after that. And I suppose I've always had a fascination with people. I'm a bit of a deep thinker, and I suppose I've always tried to look beyond what's on the surface. And then for me, I had a great career for 10 years in the music industry, completely different.
Okay.
I've been passionate about music, and then that sort of came to an end because I was actually making a living out of it probably in 1999. And then I ended up in a few sort of jobs to keep the wolf from the door, so to speak. And then I ended up in a corporate role, and just very quickly, became disillusioned with, I suppose, some of the things that were going on there, and then was able to kind of reflect back on my counselling experience and think about, what that actually did for me. And then I became interested in, I suppose, self-development. Read a lot of books on Jim Rohn, that was a kind of American life coach, I suppose, and that kind of inspired me, and I sort of started to look at coaching initially, and then this was a long time ago, so back then there wasn't really any recognition and proper accreditation, so then I started to look at psychotherapy and counselling, and I've never really considered myself to be academic, and for me, I learned by doing the thing. I'm quite kinesthetic. Yeah. So, when I went for my Chrysalis interview, the fact that it was at the weekend, I could do it. And that, I was told, well, it's part art, part science. So for me, that seemed to fit. And yeah, I similar to what you were saying earlier, I wasn't really keen on what I thought hypnotherapy was. Didn't really understand it, but when I did the first year, it was just absolutely fascinating. Learning about the subconscious and that inner voice that we all have in a healthy sense. And over here it's going, why don't you? You can do it. You've done it before. But over here it's going, well, what if it goes wrong? What will people think? And it's kind of, well, which one do you feed, really? So for me, it did what it said on the tin. And I really enjoyed it. And similarly, I've got friends that I still keep in touch with that I trained with as well. And it's also in that previous sort of 3 years when I was working in that corporate role, I was working ridiculous hours, quite unsociable hours. So it also gave me a work-life balance. It enabled me to take time. When I decided to start a family, So it kind of, you know, it gave me that balance, really.
Yeah, it sounds like it's a good fit for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's always interesting when you look at different careers that people have come from, and there's a very diverse range, isn't there? You know, when we talk to our students on that first class, you know, and they introduce themselves and say what they're doing, I'm always surprised at the sort of diversity of previous occupations or current occupations, and also the reasons why people do it, because some people do the Chrysalis course so that they can sort of add on to their current role, don't they? Whereas some people want to retrain completely and sort of leave their current role behind. Yeah. But Clive, you're an interviewer, aren't you? So I guess that you have you know, an awareness of that. You know, it's a long time since I had my interview for Chrysalis. But I guess there's a lot of people watching today who are going to be recognising your voice and thinking that perhaps you're the guy that interviewed them.
Yeah.
So what do you find that people say as reasons for doing the Chrysalis course?
I think it's probably people that have got empathy. They've had their, I mean, you know, I always think that life touches everybody. And I also think as well, and this is just my personal view, that this idea that we're supposed to leave school, college, university, and kind of know what we want to do for the rest of our lives is, you know, fairly, I don't know, ridiculous. You know, we have to go out and experience the textures of life to understand, you know, what we actually feel passionate about. I think the other thing is it gives people control. You know, they can control their hours and you know, the days they want to work, and it's something that you're continually learning in, you know, constantly.
Yeah.
So as much as there's structure to what we do and boundaries and ethics, you know, I always feel that no two clients are the same. You know, the challenges that are manifesting within them might be similar, but the way that individual is coping with them is always relatively unique to how they perceive the environment around them and their personality.
Yeah, there's variety, isn't there? And that's what I absolutely love. I mean, there was variety to my old job in some ways as well. I mean, no 2 days in a primary school is exactly the same, let me tell you. But like you say, there's some flexibility, isn't there? I think in you know, what we do. Yeah. Lynne, I don't want to leave you out here, because we're talking about sort of why we've become therapists, really. But it's not just about that. It's about, when we talk about the road travelled, it's about how we came to be doing what we're doing. And obviously you're not a therapist, but you will have, of course, a background of, you know, how you came to be doing what you're doing right now. So do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, of course. Listening to Clive, actually, the corporate world, which is more where I was, so not high flying jobs, but in a corporate sort of environment. And it's all about business, and it's not about people. It's just about money, really, more than anything else. And I, in my previous long-term role, had really got quite stressed with it all and needed a change. And to the point that I went off and worked in retail for 18 months, which I'd never done before. And in some ways, it was a lovely break. It wasn't what I wanted to do permanently, but it was a nice break, and it got me back into the position of feeling that I was ready to do something else. And so Chrysalis is great for me because we're a fairly small team where we are, lovely people, and you're dealing with people. And in our position, I feel that we can really make a difference to people to the students. You know, they've got their own issues, obviously, some of them. We need to try and accommodate them wherever we can. It's a nice thing to do. I think that I'd like to think I've got empathy, and I think that's probably the most important thing, because whether you're counselling or whether you're just speaking to clients, customers, students, whatever you want to call them, everyone needs a bit of understanding, and they need you to realise what it is that will help them. So wherever we can, we do, and it's a nice thing to do. You know, you go away at the end of the day feeling like you've helped someone. So that's good.
Oh, that's fantastic, and I absolutely agree with you about empathy. You know, some of our students haven't studied for a long time, for example, have they? And there can be quite a lot of anxiety, can't there, about academic work? Quite a lack of confidence sometimes. You know, when you.
Yeah.
I think some of my students find it difficult at first when they're practicing in front of people. You know, that it can be a big deal, can't it?
It can, and I did a correspondence course 10 years ago maybe, and it was the first time I'd studied for over 30 years, I guess. And it was a different topic entirely, but it's a challenge, and it feels really strange when you've been away from it for a long time to have to get yourself back into doing it. But it was quite enjoyable, really, and it's satisfying when you can do that, when you think, actually, not quite past it after all.
Yeah, we've all felt like that, haven't we? And then we think, oh no, there's life in the old dog. Yeah, I can absolutely do it.
Absolutely, it's very good for your confidence.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what Clive said is absolutely right. You know, you said, Clive, that you didn't feel like you were a particularly academic person. But, you know, counselling, you know, like I said earlier, you've got to learn about the theory, obviously. That's important. But it's something that you do, isn't it? You know, and it's something that and empathy is something that you feel. It's not just about writing essays.
Yeah.
So what do you guys think about, sorry, Clive, what were you going to say?
I was going to say that was the great thing for me as a student, was that, you know, you have the opportunity to do the thing. And for me, you know, that's how you learn something. You know, if you put your head under a car bonnet and buy a Haynes manual on, you know, I don't know how to take the head gasket out. You know, that's one skill set. Actually sticking your head underneath it and doing it is a completely different. So the idea that, you know, you have that theory and the practice marry really well together.
Oh, definitely. I mean, when I was a primary school teacher, we you have to present things in different ways, because all people, all kids, but also adults, of course, all learn in a different way, don't they? And I think we try and do that, don't we?
Yeah.
So what do you think, I'm just throwing this open now, really, what do you think are the transferable skills from your old career, if you've done something previously? Because I think we tend to see, don't we, oh, I did that, and now I do this, and people tend to see them as incredibly different, but actually there's loads of skills that can transfer between different jobs that are useful to us.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for me, because I had a nursing background, then obviously, you know, working with medical hypnotherapy, and I understand all those things. And what I often say to students is, you know, that code of ethics that we use is such an important document, because it helps us to just think about our competencies that we've got. You know, so some people might have skills from previous jobs that are really valuable as a hypnotherapist or a counsellor that transfer across. Like for me, it was my medical knowledge. But other people have got fabulous organisational skills, or they have knowledge in, say, nutrition or something like that they can use when they're helping their clients in different ways. So, yeah, I love the fact that we've got this. You know, we work to the ethical framework, and that enables you to examine yourself and your own competencies and say, yeah, I can bring those things into my hypnotherapy or counselling because I have been trained in other things.
And it's great, isn't it, when we have, when we have conversations and discussions and debates in the classroom about different, and everyone can come in with a different perspective because of experiences they've had, because of jobs that they're doing, because of, you know, it's just great to have all those different experiences and skills. It makes you a rounded
The
person.
cultural diversity as well, because we have
absolutely.
people of different ages, different backgrounds, people who come from other countries, and everybody brings such a richness into the classroom.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
I must admit, when I began my counselling career, I honestly thought, I shouldn't admit this to you really, but I honestly thought it wouldn't be difficult. I just thought, well, you know, I've got people skills, and I'm just going to learn a bit of counselling, and off I go. Oh God, was I in for a shock? And honestly, I remember the day I said to my counsellor, I can remember, if I shut my eyes, I can remember where I parked, how I felt, everything. And I said to her, my supervisor, I beg your pardon, I said to her, I honestly thought that my people skills would come in handy in counselling, but I can see that they're a bit of a hindrance sometimes. And she said, Maddie, that's great awareness. And I thought, yeah, maybe, but what the hell do I do now? And it was just this, you know, how people, when they're talking to each other, they're not really listening so much of the time, because you'll say to somebody, oh, God, I've got a headache this morning. Yeah, me too. You're not listening to what the other person is saying.
Yeah.
And for me, to move from my qualification of counselling, my 100 hours that I had to do, my supervision, my case study, my everything else, I had to learn where my whole self was. I had to take that whole self back in the counselling room, which is so valuable. But at the same time, I had to strip away anything that was about myself. Yeah. And that's one of the hardest things I've ever done in my professional life. Doing anything. Learning to play the piano, sing, anything. That kind of shut up and listen. You know, yeah.
But I think as well, we all said, didn't we, at the beginning, you know, we had that empathy and people often came to us, but it's a completely different dynamic, isn't it? Someone coming to you, you know, because you obviously have empathy, obviously the empathy is great for counselling, but when you're having a chat with a friend or a colleague because they've recognised in you somebody that they can turn to, the conversation you have with that friend or colleague or family member is totally different, isn't it, than the dynamic you have in the counselling room. Totally different.
Very. Yeah, I found my people skills came in handy for hypnotherapy.
Yeah.
When I was practicing that, because people were anxious. It seemed, because they didn't know what was going to happen, whereas in counselling they're just going to talk, but in hypnotherapy one of them said to me, I just have no idea what's going to happen to me. I've never been like this before. And I thought, now I can use some of my people skills and show it. Yeah. So my hypnotherapy, it's been a lot more useful for me than my counselling.
Yeah, that's interesting. Lynne, you said you came from the corporate world, didn't you? So what have been the transferable skills for you to working in the Chrysalis office?
Well, among the other things, I've worked for estate agents and solicitors.
Oh, okay.
So I'm used to having some people on the phone who've got stories. It was litigation with solicitors, so long phone calls with people, and everyone who phones stressed. Anyone who's dealing with any kind of litigation, for one reason or another, is stressed. So do get used to speaking to people who aren't always very happy. You're really listening to what they've got to say so that you can try to work out what to do. Or sometimes they just want someone to listen to, I think. They want to know that whoever they're dealing with understands whatever it is that they're talking about. So there are long conversations. And it's satisfying sometimes you get someone who starts off being quite angry on the phone. It's really satisfying if we can get to the end of the conversation and it's all nice and friendly and they're grateful for whatever you've done for them. So that's a real good transferable skill, I think.
Oh, absolutely. Have you thought of training as a counsellor, Lynne?
I haven't, but there is something about it that I think would be really good to do.
Yeah, well, it's never too late, is it?
No.
And that's one of the things that I think is great about therapy, that we have, and I think you mentioned it, Linda, there's that diversity, and one element of that diversity is the age diversity we have, don't we, in our students? And I think that's absolutely fantastic, because a lot of jobs feel quite ageist in some ways, and I don't think you get that in the counselling world and in the therapy world in general.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, we see people in the office, you know, when their details come through, we've got ladies in their 80s who are still training and doing really well.
Wow, fantastic!
As well as you know, obviously people in the 20s. So and from every kind of background. So it's a really good thing. Yeah.
Oh, that is brilliant. Yeah. So lastly, Clive, let's come to you. So what are your transferable skills? Because you are a musician, you've had a road well travelled, haven't you? So what are the transferable skills been for you?
Well, I think it's a bit of a buzzword, really, but being a people person.
Yeah.
Really, I think there is some, like any good counselling course out there. I think there are definitely things you can teach people, but there are some things you can't. And it's like my dear old mum used to say to me when I was a lot younger, you know, you can't make a square peg fit a round hole. So I think if you've got those people skills, and again, I suppose I'm biased to a degree because I'm talking about my own experience, but when I trained, it was also about learning to actively listen, sort of reflecting back on what we were discussing earlier.
Yeah.
I think, you know, for me, and also being in that corporate world, you were always expected to find a solution to something. But when you're a counsellor, you know, sometimes there isn't always a solution.
Yeah.
It's about, you know, the client has to understand that they have to hold that. So for me, that was a massive learning curve, and that felt quite, you know, empowering as well. And I think, as somebody was saying earlier, most people listen solely with the intent of replying to what's actually being said to them, instead of actively listening and then being able to paraphrase that back, which is what we're taught in counselling.
I absolutely agree. I always say, you know, we're trying to develop that skill of listening to understand rather than listening to reply. And I think that, you know, at first that's what students tend to do. I'm not really including you in that, Mandy, because you're a qualified counsellor. But I think that is that is a move really from that kind of that nervousness about I'm going to have to respond in a minute, to actually just actively listening, like you say, just listening to gain understanding rather than listening to work out what you're going to say. And but that's lovely when you see that change in people, that they start to do that, I think. Yeah. Well, guys, it's been lovely to see you all. We don't always see each other's faces, do we? So it's been a bit of a treat. We often sort of, you know, hear voices or at the other end of an email, but we don't often see each other's faces. So thank you very much for joining me. If you've enjoyed listening to our chat today, please like and subscribe to the channel. And the next video cast will be entitled "The Spice of Life," and that will be coming soon.
Nice to meet you all.
Yeah, nice to meet you all as well. And thank you so much for watching, everybody.
Take care. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.